Welcome to Recap Pro. Today I'll explain a comedy movie, Urania. Spoilers alerts. The movie begins with a child soldering. A voice whispers about someone wanting something badly enough, it'll happen even reaching the moon. A couple of boys are riding their bikes down the road. As they get farther, more boys join them until there are 5 of them. They ride through town, through a field, and finally stop close to an abandoned plane in the middle of a forest. The group climbs in and pretends they're in a long flight. Sergeant Batsekoutzes is trying to open a squeaky gate when the deputy asks if they really needed to visit the school that day since they've been holding on to the books for almost a year now. Sergeant Batsekoutzes tells him to shut it since they've been instructed by the ministry because they should have already been delivered the day they arrived. They enter, greet the teacher but realize that the children are nowhere to be found. The teacher tells them to leave the books on the desks so that the children may find them in September. The teacher dramatically shares that he has already said his forever goodbyes to the children since he'll be transferred to Castellarizo. Fotis talks about not having time, especially with his pimples appearing all over his face. His brother had the same problem but had Urania sleep with him. Hercules asks him if Urania popped them for his brother and he hits him, telling him that Urania slept with his brother. Achilles reads out the contract the group has signed which states that they've sworn to collect the necessary money in order to have intimate relations with Urania. Achilles points out that they've also sworn that not one of them will go to Urania alone or else they'll burn in hell. In the evening, Achilles is with Zoe. They're lying on the rooftop and watching the stars. He tells her it's what he likes most in the world. Lying on her belly, looking up at the sky with him narrating stories. Zoe tells him that if his father was alive and he finishes the thought that his father would have slaughtered him since he's a vicious man. Achilles read out a summary of an upcoming movie instead of telling a story. Zoe then alerts him of a shooting star but he misses it. He tells her his wish was to fly and she shushes him, telling him that his wish won't come true since he shared it. He asks if she made a wish and she confirms it but won't tell him what. She just lets him know that it's not as difficult to come true as his own. After the mass, the men leaving the church are called by the cinema owner and shown a new projector that's intended for the city to use. Surtees asks why it's needed now when television's not needed and cinemas are dead. The cinema owner takes offense and tells them to smell the projector to make sure that it's new. The priest arrives to bless the new projector, then they start drinking and singing. A call from the commander comes and the deputy hurries to take the phone to Sergeant Batsekoutzes. He's asked if the new projector's compatible with the newsreel, which the cinema owner affirms. The commander goes on to ask if Sergeant Batsekoutzes has a television and apologizes that a television isn't available in the village. The commander mentions something about communism which Sergeant Batsekoutzes vehemently denies. The line gets cut after a tractor drives over and breaks the telephone line. The boys go to spy on Urania, arriving just in time to see a man leaving her house. Fenorios approaches her and hands over the money. Urania tells him that they're not enough, not even for a peek, then he takes out a loaf of bread and offers it to her. The rest of the boys come. Urania tells them that they're lucky because she likes them and then goes to tease the boys with a lewd display. Achilles gets into a fight with his father over his friendship with Thomas since his father is accusing Sotris, Thomas's father, of betraying him. He tells Achilles that he won't get a certificate of social ideology, which means he can't become a pilot. Achilles storms off and tells his father he'll be an astronaut instead. Bringing over a rabbit to draw, he asks his grandfather about the certificate his father mentioned. He tells him that it's a paper that'll state that he's a good boy, but since Achilles will be a good painter, he won't need it. Achilles then asks his grandfather why Zoe lives with her grandmother instead of her parents. His grandfather only tells him that it's a sad and long story, but he'll get to hear it someday. Thomas and Achilles visit the cinema to buy tickets for a lewd movie. Thomas goes to buy them the tickets since he's taller. But they're taken outside not a minute later by Sergeant Batsekoutzes. The boys then try to go over the wall but Achilles falls and passes out. The midwife checks on him and realizes whose kid he is. She comments that the evil eye has cast its spell on him. A doctor comes forward and dismisses the midwife rudely. He checks on Achilles and tells the crowd that he has a concussion and a broken leg. At the hospital, another doctor's finishing up Achilles' cast as he stares at the X-ray of his leg. The doctor tells him that in a month or 2, his leg should be good. He tries to get a conversation going with Achilles but the boy doesn't bite. He gives him a magazine about the moon which Achilles takes. Evening comes and Achilles is with Zoe on the roof again despite his broken leg. He whispers about the moon and Apollo 11 to her excitedly, telling her all about the launch. He comments that the whole world would watch it happen except them since no one in the village has a television and no one is interested in buying one. Urania enters the store where Fotis works and greets him. She goes to mess with the boy who stares at her with his mouth open. She asks for some squid which he tries to get but drops it on top of the grocer's head. Fotis immediately makes a run for it with the grocer throwing stuff at him in anger. The boys meet up in their usual hiding spot by the abandoned plane. Fenorios asks who gave the SOS signal and Achilles says it was him. But Fotis cuts him off and tells them he called it first and wants his part of the money since Urania came to the store. Achilles ignores him and goes to share what he heard about the man going to the moon. He proposes to change their goal from trying to buy time with Urania to buying a television instead. All of the boys refuse. Thomas points out that Achilles had signed an agreement which he agrees with, but he tells them that they can do it later, while this would be the greatest accomplishment of humanity that they can't witness without a television. They vote on it with Hercules, Fotis, and Fenorios going with keeping the money for Urania. Achilles guilts Fenorios into changing his vote by pointing out that the man on the moon will be going to the sky, to God's residence. Another meal, another argument between Achilles and Alekos. Achilles excitedly shares that they'll be saving up for television and Sotiris will help them since the television will be placed in his coffee shop. This angers Alekos and accuses Achilles of being used as propaganda by everyone. He threatens to break Achilles' other leg if he steps into the coffee shop, and he answers that he only wanted to watch the moon landing, not the dictatorship. Women at the salon are gossiping after seeing the boys put up their posters about saving up for television. One of them wonders out loud how the boys will raise enough money on time, and Evgenia suggests that they go and help them since the women need it as well. The boys present a play called Karajojish the Astronaut. They announce that the money they collect will go to the television set. The next day, Hercules announces that the money has been counted and they have a total of 1669 drachmas. Fotis discloses that it's not even enough to buy a radio. Fenorios says he has a suggestion. He tells them that Benito was blinded because he was searching for gold, but still found gold. He suggests that they steal from the man, but Achilles refuses and tells them to ask for a loan instead. They go to harass Benito before having another donkey seduce him away. The boys go to lighten Benito's donkey saddlebags while he's riding the other donkey. Achilles is fixing the donkey saddle as Benito cries next to him. He comforts him, pointing out that the donkey didn't really abandon him but had fallen in love. In his love, his saddlebag got torn, but he has fixed it. The general calls Sergeant Batsekoutzes while Achilles is painting him. He finds out that Agnew, the vice president of the USA, will be visiting the village. He asks what he'll do since there are only 2 of them as the village's police force. Sergeant Batsekoutzes asks for enforcement, then agrees that it's a matter of high importance. Sergeant Batsekoutzes tells Achilles to tell Alekos that he needs him for something, then hands over money as payment for the painting Achilles did. He asks Achilles why he needs a certificate of social ideology when he draws so well, and Achilles doesn't answer. He leaves instead. Evgenia asks Achilles where he came from, and he answers he was at Sergeant Batsekoutzes' office. She inquires why, and he tells her that he drew him. He complains that they're far from their total, and Evgenia hands over the money the wives had collected to help the boys in buying the television set. He then relays the information that Sergeant Batsekoutzes wants to see Alekos. The boys have another meeting in their spot. Hercules reaches for the loaf, but Fotis hits him on the head and tells him to continue counting. Hercules then announces that they have a total of 2,278 drachmas and 30 cents. Fotis complains that if it wasn't for the television, each of them could have gone with Urania 3 times. Achilles then hands over the money Evgenia has collected from the wives. Hercules gasps. They're 1,000 drachmas away from the television now. They earn the last 1,000 drachmas by giving out USA and Greece flags to everyone in the village, announcing that the vice president of the USA will be arriving. Dimitrakopoulos arrives and starts criticizing everything that Sergeant Batsekoutzes has been doing. He brings out Sergeant Batsekoutzes' records. Achilles tells Zoe that she was right. If you make a wish on a falling star and do not share the wish, it comes true. He informs her that they saved the money and will be buying the television. If everything goes right, on June 20th, the village will be watching the man walk onto the moon. During mealtime, Alekos goes on another rant against Achilles, especially after bringing an American flag home. Evgenia wants to avoid another argument but reaches her breaking point. She starts yelling at Alekos, breaking plates, cursing him and his political party. He tries to calm Evgenia down, but she's not finished. She walks out crying after telling him that Achilles will leave them one day and so will she. A group of policemen raids Achilles' home. Dimitrakopoulos distracts a worried Alekos as the house is searched. They find contraband music and arrest him. Next is the coffee shop. Dimitrakopoulos heads for Sotiris and asks him if he has any relation with the former congressman. He denies it. The policemen are searching his coffee shop. They find hidden in his cellar a portrait and arrest him as well. We find out that Sotiris and Alekos have been friends since they were in primary school. Alekos points out that it was before, but he was exiled because of Sotiris. Dimitrakopoulos tells him that Evgenia often drops by at the coffee shop, which means they have a link. Dimitrakopoulos starts accusing the two of trying to use the children for other evil plans and making them collect money for something other than a television. They find Achilles ringing the bells. The inquest on Sotiris and Alekos ends with the two making up. Alekos is set free with the condition that he forges a bird for the arrival of the vice president while Sotiris has to decorate his shop. Alekos makes up with Achilles. He tells him that if he can leave the village and do whatever he wants, even if he wants to be a pilot. The group finds out that Fotis had taken the money and had his time with Urania. The other boys go to enter Urania's place but not Achilles. While sulking, Achilles finds Benito and his donkey with television on its back. The television doesn't work initially. But Thomas comes running out with the antenna. The movie ends with everyone watching the moon landing. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe my channel for more videos like this. See you in the next video.